There we go. I can hear that lady's voice. Recording in progress. Okay, so welcome everybody. Today marks the second out of three Cities of Equality exchanges where we invite a local government, or as is the case today, an organization that also works closely with local governments to share their experiences and their tips for implementing participatory practice so that others can learn and to ask questions. And our goal is to equip local governments and, for example, other organizations like civil society organizations to better apply their own inclusive participatory practices. This exchange series is a collaborative effort, so it's partially organized by me, Sophia, at ICLEI Europe, which is a network of local governments for sustainability, as well as the EUI expert Ian Graham, who I'll hand over to in a moment. And it is part of the Urban Agenda for the EU Cities of Equality Partnership, which is a group of stakeholders working on actions that contribute to better regulation, better knowledge, and better funding all around the topic of urban equality. And I'll share a link in the chat to familiarize yourself in case you aren't aware of this program already. So without further ado, I am very happy to hand over to Ian, who will lead the show today. And just note that, as I said earlier, we are recording for others who cannot be here. Um, I think that's all from my side. Ian, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Yeah, and good to see so many of you here again today. As Sophia said, my name's Ian Graham. I'm, amongst other things, an expert with EUI, the European Urban Initiative, and working with Sophia and colleagues on the Cities of Equality Partnership, specifically supporting this action, looking at participative engagement and how that features in terms of fostering greater inclusion, greater equality, greater access in cities, and so on. So without too much further debate, I'll shortly start to bring in the speakers we've got with us today. We've got Perrine and Lisa from the EANCT in France, and Arend from the city of Heerenveen in the Netherlands with us. And so they're going to go through and present some of the work they've done, each of them about around this sort of topic, and then we'll have a bit of discussion and broaden that out to include everybody as people wish to participate. So as we go through, if you have questions, please pop those into the chat as we're going. If you think of things, drop them in, and we'll be watching that, and we can work those in as we go through. But yeah, the focus really is not just about participation and how we drive participation in cities, but particularly with this angle of what does that mean for inclusion, what does that mean for equity and equality, and how can we either increase inclusion through participation, or how can we drive better or more inclusive participation itself as well. So those are the angles we're particularly looking at with this. So I think without further ado, I'd like to invite Perrine and Lisa from NCT to share a bit about their Territoire d'Engagement program, which is sort of I think a national level program that's looking at supporting cities in terms of working with people locally. But Perrine, Lisa, I'll hand over to you to tell us more about that. Welcome.
Thank you, Ian. I'll share. Is that okay for the slides?
Yep, see those, yeah.
Okay, so we will start. Hello everyone, we are Perrine and Lisa from the Territoire d'Engagement program run by the ANCT, and we will present you today our program and how it aims to help to better equip local authorities to apply innovative participatory practices and see how to implement them with a focus on equality and equity. Before doing so, what is the ANCT? Created in 2020, the National Agency for Territorial Cohesion is a government body whose mission is to support local authorities in designing and implementing their territorial projects, but without replacing them. So the French state provides the ANCT a mandate and funding, and the agency operates through several programs such as Mountain Future or Villages of the Future, and it also operates through tailored territorial engineering. We will present you one of the NCT program, Territoire d'Engagement, Territories of Commitment, launched in 2021. It aims to help local authorities involve their residents in shaping local decisions. The idea is to support the development of participatory projects to foster local cooperation between elected officials, local actors, and citizens, and establish sustainable culture of citizen participation. So the idea is not only to implement one specific participatory action, but rather to have a long-term transformation of how public action is designed and implemented. So overall, the program creates the conditions for participatory dynamics to emerge. There are three types and modes of intervention within the program. First, the individualized support to one volunteer territory for a period of 12 to 18 months is a support built around the territory pace and needs, which combines training and change management for elected officials, public servants, and citizens. Also the support for designing local projects built on citizen engagement and participation. Then we have the collective support, which brings together 3 to 5 territories which share a common theme, such as youth or cultural democracy, for instance, and it is between 6 to 12 months. Each territory develop its own participatory action plan and then exchange practices and learning from one another. And finally, the community of Territoire d'Engagement, which includes overall booth workshops, webinar series, sharing experiences, or even practical resources and so on. And we also see that the program has several impacts on restoring trust, local empowerment, networking, systemic effect, greater inclusion, and improved relationships. So this is everything we will start with considering our program.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lisa. I think it's a sort of, it sets out the sort of the essence of it really well. I particularly like the thing about the sort of creating the conditions for those participatory dynamics, because I guess that's what these sort of programs are about. It's like, it's not about doing things for people, it's about how do you enable the culture, the behaviors, the dynamics that means those things can emerge more naturally. I guess the root behind that is to make it more sustaining, I presume, in terms of helping people understand how to do it for themselves, how to make it work for themselves in a longer term. Is there has it always been the thing about the 3 levels? Was that always in there from the beginning, this sort of this individualized, the collective, the territories, or is that built up over time? Is that these 3 modes, were they always baked into it as a concept?
The 2 first modes, individualized support and collective support, they exist since the beginning. But the third one, the community, was built later with all the staff and elected people who were involved before. So we make it we adapt further all the interventions.
Yeah, and I guess that provides another level of exchange of practice as well, I suppose, in terms of helping people make the connections. And do people draw peer support from that as well, or sort of learning and taking ideas from other places? Is that the idea behind it?
Yeah, and to make the dynamic more sustainable, to after the end of the support, to make people to continue exchanges and learning, and to feel less isolated.
No, I see that. Yeah, so I suppose the individualized and the collective support are time-limited interventions that happen, but the community runs through and continuously, so people can. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, no, that's nice. Can you? I think you've got a couple of sort of concrete examples of projects to kind of give us a flavour of what that looks like in practice. Do you want to share
Yes.
a bit of that in terms of the sort of specifics, in terms of what these projects might look like?
Yeah, I can give you maybe two examples. As Lisa told you before, we've got those two different types of intervention, individualized and collective. So I can tell you about a shared project we just finished to involve inhabitants in welcoming refugees. And this project directly address inclusion goals. In 2025, we launched a collaborative initiative with 3 cities focused on engaging residents in the welcoming and integration of refugees. And these 3 cities were already strongly committed to welcoming and integrating policies. So our goal was to work on a complementary aspect to traditional initiatives like language learning or access to employment or mobility assistance. It was involving local residents. And for a year, elected officials and staff, they worked with residents to co-design an action plan and test some of the innovative ideas. And teams from the 3 cities met regularly to exchange and share their learnings and their ideas and their challenges. And finally, what was most striking is that through the goal of welcoming refugees, the 3 cities actually adopted a kind of holistic and integrated approach to inclusion by proposing actions to facilitate and to develop local connections and create opportunities for neighbors and residents just to meet. The shared project helps it to mobilize inhabitants always, as well as some staff, some services, and some community organizations far beyond the specific field of integration. And in particular, those who are involved in sports and culture. The participation of refugees themselves in community projects or citizen engagement initiative is also a powerful driver for integration. And as part of this initiative, municipalities also considers those most excluded from this. In the city of Autun, for example, a specific initiative was launched to include aging refugees who are particularly isolated in the city within an existing participatory body, which is a Senior Citizens Council. So that's one of the example. And the second one is a kind of individualized support. So as Lisa told you, what we intend with individualized support is not just to set up one-off consultations, but to initiate a real process of transformation. We aim to support local authorities in developing new skills and new practices. And to achieve this, we try to integrate 3 types of action within the support program: concrete projects to allow elected officials and staff to experience cooperation with inhabitants and local stakeholders, group training sessions, and change management to help embed new practices over time. And for the first support programs we initiated, we had the opportunity to offer long-term 3 years pathways, which allowed a step-by-step approach and a trial and error learning process. So, for instance, in Chambéry, a city in the French Alps with 60,000 inhabitants, the program was rolled out gradually with annual plans. So you can see on the slide, after the assessment phase to analyze the participatory practices on the territory and identify which opportunities we had. We had 3 annual plans. The first year, we had one project about organizing a youth forum. And training was for the planning and urban development department to initiate participatory processes. And support was for the citizen engagement department inside the municipality. On the second year, we had a project to improve welcoming visitor at one of the neighborhood town hall. We offered training for all the staff about how to work with children in those participatory processes. And we had some support to develop a tool for a multi-year plan for citizen engagement and to have a more prospective vision. And the final year, we had training for participants of a citizen neighborhood council, support of greening of schoolyards, and the final project was to create a podcast series to share with inhabitants the story of the city's participatory processes. So, as you can see, we try to have an approach like a gradual approach and to implement a sustainable dynamic.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I think it's the sustainability angle, isn't it? Making it so it can build over time. You allow people the time to change their practice, because I guess these things don't shift overnight, do they? It takes time for people to understand on both sides, from the municipality side, from the city side, but also from residents, how this works. How do we work this in a different way? How do we work together? It's really interesting. There's several things I kind of want to come back to on all this, but I think what I'd like to do first is step across to Arend from Heerenveen, is actually hear his practice that he's going to share, because I think there's some similarities and there's some contrasts, and I think it might provide an interesting dynamic. But I definitely want to come back to you shortly, Lisa and Prem. But thanks for that initial presentation. That's really great.
Thank you.
Arend, if you're ready, I will find your slides for you and share those.
Try to have the slides in my own.
Oh, okay. We had a few technical challenges this morning with security protocols. Oh, there you go. Yes, perfect.
Do you see it, or doing you?
Yeah, we see it. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, great to have you all in this presentation. My name is Arend Toering of the municipality of Heerenveen. Where in this capacity I'm a project lead for the, as we call it, DOM project, the SMART method. I will explain to you in a while why we call it that way. And from the municipality of Heerenveen, which is in the northern part of the Netherlands and has some 50,000 inhabitants, we lead the method project for 5 neighboring municipalities in our province. Does this work? Does the slide run on your screen too?
Yep, we've got this is DOM slide in front of us.
Okay, that's great. Well, DOM and also the slogan, the SMART method, come from the word DOM, which in Dutch means silly, which is a nice icebreaker when you go to villages presenting the method. But it stands for a village development corporation, and that's what it is about. It's a collaborative method that is focused on giving villages a position, in creating a basis and a position in which villages and the municipal government, as well municipality in a broader sense, can work together and collaborate. On 3 bases: on an equal basis, on a structural basis, and in the end effective basis. That's why we want to do it, and have villages and communities, give them grounds to experience growth and cooperation with us as a municipality, and to have their goals finalized and seen into results. And Ian said that I had to make it short, so I will skip some slides where we go back into in all the questions. But what are the main principles? And I see the presentation isn't completely well exported, so I explain to you. But our three main principles in which the DOM method acts, and that's together. So all parties meet on an equal basis, government as well as villages. And from the village, I will show you in a while, there are working groups on all subjects that they find interesting, that they find work together worked on. It is on meet in the middle, so we are very much not in a top-down position as a government, but meet in the middle together with villages to explore where we are heading and to realize the wished results. And it's very much based on linking parties. The main thing isn't about money or project or budget, but is bringing the just people together and share all our plans and all our goals in order to meet the objectives that we set.
Oh, and do you want me to pop the slides on if they've not done quite what you hope they do?
I think that's better because they haven't been exported well.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just pop them on for you and just shout if you want me to move them.
I will give you a very that's the right one.
That's what you wanted to see. Yeah,
that's what I wanted to see and what I was telling. So the three main principles together, meet in the middle, and to link the parties that are involved and that have a role in the various results that we want to achieve. Thank you very much. So we are working into a concrete result, which can be very various objectives. So, for instance, new public squares or spaces, new school buildings, or also more soft results. For instance, new clubs or sporting clubs, for instance. And there is very much a learning capacity for us as a municipality, that as a municipal government we have to steer in the initial phase in setting objectives together, so again in the meet the middle principle, but then also let go and have villages and all involved villagers and inhabitants play their own role in achieving the objectives that we set. I think we can go to the next slide. So we work in a sort of triangle in which there is a very important person coming in, which we call the connector, and which is an independent person, which is paid by the municipal government from our project budget. But he or she is quite a key success in what we have seen over the past years in executing the DOM project. The independent connector is there at the moments that we as municipal government meet with the village, which is probably every month, depending on how intensified the process is at a certain stage. But he or she facilitates all the talks, has an independent position towards the village, as well as an independent position towards us as a government, and can very much act between the two parties of us to make the village clear what is happening and why we do certain things, which sometimes works better. Sadly, maybe, but it works better than we as a municipal government tell it. And also, he or she knows very much how government processes work and can very well act on that towards the village as well. So he or she activates, stimulates, enthusiasts, and motivates everyone. And as I said, he or she, we now have a sort of pool of 5 or 6 of these connectors, which we in Dutch call DOM thinkers, who are involved with the various villages that we have the method running, and they are very well known with governmental processes, so that makes it very easy and have them very very independent, good position also with villages. Thank you. Then what makes it stand out? So the structural and long-term cooperation in which we at the front on the start, the initial phase of a process of which takes about 3 years in standard processes. That we in the initial phase look very good in what we want to achieve, and that the villages have a very big say in what they want to achieve. Of course, in some expectation management with us in what we can provide not. But it works very well that we are already looking together into what we want to achieve, and not on the moment that, for instance, something is on our agenda as a government to do. So the equal position that everyone has with the position of the independent connector. And in the end, the collaborative method in which we co-create together and not have it in a sole initiative on which we just work together incidentally.
Yeah, now there's a question in the chat from Alexander who just wanted to clarify. It says the connector is an intern of the municipality or external. So is it employed by the municipality or is it a procurement? Just
They are external. They are external, and we, as I said, we have a pool of persons. So we know that they have the qualities and the capabilities and the competences that they need to fulfill the role. And they are paid by us from our budget, but they work independent. So maybe
look in a consultant sort of type style, yeah. Okay, yeah.
But we are really fond about that they keep their independent position, so they are paid by us, but we only look towards their process skills and not steer if they don't say the same things that we want them to say.
Yes, because there's a difference between a municipality employee turning up to one of these things versus an independent, exactly. I suppose.
And that's their success factor. That's their contribution to the process in the way that they work so good, because they have that independent position, and they are very well trusted by all the villages that we work together with.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing for me. Then again, it's the long-term aspect of it. It's not in the same way as for Territoire d'Engagement. It's not just a one-off intervention. It's about building a movement, building a change over time. And I think the connector aspects, again, an interesting component. And I guess we often see that as one of the successful things in all sorts of different fields, but bringing that external perspective in can be really helpful to, I suppose, as you say, just to drive that different view, different voice, and potentially bring different skills as well. I also like the bit around the steering and letting go, because I think that's the thing about enabling participation and enabling people to step into it, is the importance about you can't retain control if you want other people to be more involved. You have to release something, and that's often the tension or the judgment as to how much do you let go and how quickly and in what terms. Yeah, that's so. Have you got what was I going to say? Are there particular examples you've got? The sort of concrete examples. I think. So have you got them on the?
Ask the question if you go forward to the slides with the action with the method in action.
Yeah, that one. There you go.
Yeah, that one. I've put 2 slides together. Also the slide after this one, in which you have an overview of all the working groups that have been developed in this particular village, which is Oldebon, which has some 1,500 inhabitants. And they put together with us 8 working groups on 8 specific subjects or themes, on which we as a government also have a challenge or a certain objective to meet. So, for instance, here you see public spaces. So the village, together with our colleagues from public spaces, put together a plan and a design for a new central village square. There's also been a working group on education. There were 2 schools in the village, but the number of kids in the village is declining. So it meant that there was a need, or really the urgent of empty school buildings, as well as there was a Christian and a public school who now, which was quite a social project, had to collaborate and in the end go together under one roof. And there were very old school buildings. So they, in the working group of education, worked together on all those subjects. And now in the end, a new school building is being built at this very moment. And by the initiative of this working group, they also created spaces in that school building that can be used for non-educational purposes. So, for instance, if the village wants to come together or cook in the school kitchen, they can use the school building for that in the future. As well as on housing, for instance, we have a very big housing issue in the Netherlands. This working group worked on making insights about what the village needs on housing, and how, as a municipality, we can play a role in that. And we, as municipality, use them to get insights and more deeper insights in what the village needs and what kind of housing needs to be developed there. So these are some examples of how this of how concrete things were realized. One thing to say, which is very interesting, is that the DOM project only facilitates in process budget. So it does provide money to make a design or to facilitate a certain process. But I always use the metaphor. If you want to make the plan or the design, you can pay it by DOM process budget, which is some 25,000 euros per village. But if you want to buy the stones and building materials, you need to find another fund, which 9 out of 10 times is provided by us as a municipality, because, for instance, it's in our maintenance budget, or we need to have some objective ourselves on that. And that always is a talking point in the initial phase, where we set the objectives together. And that's all very well done with expectation management. If we know that we don't have some budget for it, it's a very clear rule that the village can decide to work on it, but that we can't meet that demand in the end. And because that is made clear in the initial phase, there is not very much discussion about that. Besides that, in the end, the village can have a very well plan that they can present to the municipal council and ask for additional budget on. So it all starts with very clear expectation management on that.
Yeah, and I think that's always a key point in these sort of bringing people into it. I think helping people feel comfortable about what their role is in there, how they can participate, what's the limit of what they can do and what they can't do. I think those expectations and funding is always a question in these sort of situations. So being clear about that. But I think it's interesting. Again, I think there's a lot of examples in some respects around funding the process separately from funding the intervention, I suppose, the output, the result of that process. One thing I wanted to kind of move on to, because I think that's really helpful, Aaron. Thank you for sharing that. Because I'm trying to make it's quite clear and sort of concrete. I know there's a lot of other content around it. I think if people have questions that we haven't covered, please drop them in the chat, and there's opportunities to follow some of this up afterwards. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about where are the kind of challenges or limitations of this method you see? Where are there barriers that you've run into, or things that you feel actually don't work as well as they perhaps could do, or you can only go so far with these sort of things?
Well, to start off, our main challenge has to do with inclusion. how to get broader groups of people to the table besides the usual suspects, which always collaborate with us in these kind of projects and processes. So that is a very well, I would not say limitation, but more of a challenge for us as a municipal government, and to for the initiators from villages of the method too. To have groups like youth or certain marginalized groups involved in the process. One thing that we do notice is that with all these working groups, which you saw on the slides, is that it's easier to get more people involved than normally, because they can work on a subject that they find very interesting. So if you have people who are very fond about sustainability, they will have will take a seat in the working group for energy transition, for example.
So you give people places they recognize that they have an interest. Well, I mean, interest-based, but also, I suppose, feeling that they can contribute something, I guess, as well.
They can, and they are busy with a subject that they find personally interesting, and they don't have all the other subjects that they don't find interesting. They don't have to be involved with that. So that does work. And we put extra focus on for example, getting youth involved, and that comes down to really getting towards them. So don't meet on a Monday evening or Tuesday evening, for example, but go to where they are, for example, on a Saturday morning while they are playing football, and going to the canteen afterwards, and have there some sort of interactive a meeting on, for instance, a thing that's very fun to them, finding a house in the end. And you could say, well, why disturb them while playing some nice game of football? But it really has proven that on the subjects that they are fond about, and that they feel the pain of, that they really want to contribute and find it very, very.
They're not going to come to City Hall when they're
exactly.
At a time
so
it's not convenient.
So look for them. And I think that specific approach is not only the case for youth, for instance, also on marginalized groups or groups that were segregated. Our colleagues from ANCT, Perrine and Lisa were talking about that. Really use a tailored approach to find them on the way that they work or where they are, and that helps a bit. Not in the end as much as we would like. Of course, you want a 90 to 100% score, but
it's always what you can do. And I think you're right. I think there is always that bit about meeting people where they are, like mentally and physically. You know, you
exactly.
need to engage
and
people on that level.
that needs a lot of time and effort, and you should make the choice if it's worth or not, or etc.
On that basis, then, can I switch across back to you, Perrine and Lisa, with the sort of same question a little bit around the sort of the challenges and limitations in terms of what for your program, what have been the difficulties there that you've come into and had to overcome or are still overcoming? Oh, you're still muted there, guys. There you go.
Obviously it's quite similar to Arendt. I can start with some challenges for the local authorities themselves. What is really essential is a form of political alignment in the local authority, cooperating with inhabitants requires a better internal cooperation. So that's the main challenge, like internal cooperation inside the local authority. What we learned from the past year is also that the municipality must be able to rely on sufficient human resources and skills inside. And the most important is what Arendt said before is to ensure that new people are gradually involved in the process, to expand the group of people engaged in the process. Quite often, the processes rely on a very few people, and if they leave, if they change, it can be very weakening for the whole process.
And
Yeah.
also, we can add the fact that it is complex to assess the effects, whether they are positive or negative, of participatory actions, both on the decision itself and its quality, and also on the measurement of the indirect consequences, such as strengthening social cohesion, social ties, for instance. And finally, as Aaron also said, the question of inclusion itself, even though it's a clear point of attention, we keep in mind always when deploying actions within the program, and it really remains the major challenge of participatory approaches. So these are all the challenges that we can think of, even though it's not exhaustive.
No, and I think the bit around inclusion, and that's why we're having these conversations to a certain degree to unpick some of this. But I think it's true that participation and participatory approaches take time and effort and resources. It's more resource intensive than doing it without people. You know, go it alone and you can go much faster. And I think that can be challenging. And then to push the inclusion even further, to be more inclusive with those processes, is another step after you've sort of started being participatory in the first place. So I think that building up over time, that expanding out from a small team into a bigger team, that building the things, I think probably is one of the really key things to really get to participation. It's, if people are learning it, let's face it, including groups that are hard to reach is harder, because you know, and I think there is that bit around you have to build some internal capability to be able to do that, unfortunately, I think. And I guess there's often, from my perspective, there aren't very many shortcuts to doing that. I think unless you've got exactly the right conditions, it's very hard to jump straight into being super inclusive, unfortunately. And I guess that's one of the interesting things, is, are there ways where we can shortcut some of that, or are there ways where we can, you know, help people do better at the outset? I don't know, from Aaron, from Lisa, from your perspective, in terms of that inclusion aspect, are there things when you look back at what you've done that you think, actually, if we'd have done this, we probably could have driven the inclusion a bit better, a bit faster? Do either of you have any sort of thoughts of things you could have done differently now you look, or you are now doing differently from having looked back?
I think that for us, the example that I just gave, we got the insight, or really put the effort into the insight that we had to find specific groups where they are, and that it takes extra time and effort. I wish that we had used it earlier.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
And I also find very interesting that the group that we work together with, the group of villages that we work together with. As I said, they are some sort of usual suspect and know quite well how government processes work, and always the group that take that role and think in quite the same way. So maybe as a government, you're already on the path of, we need to do this differently. You also have to take that group of villages that is initially involved also on that path. So I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, identifying how you go on that path together, I suppose, is the journey of developing the participation. It also has to be participatory, I suppose, in that sense, if that's not too meta.
Exactly. And if I can add anything to that, I just saw the question of Sophia in the chat. She asks about the concept
trust,
of restoring public trust in government via participation. That what you just said, that working together in a participatory manner to go forward does help in restoring public trust, at least of the people who are involved with it, because you have a long-standing or longer-standing collaboration with each other. There is some sort of social contract. There is more trust in the persons across the table personally too, and you're not just tied to that one telephone call or that one article in the papers or that one project or announcement. So people trust you more on a personal basis and also in that social contract. And it means also that people get very much more insights, and that you are very more in the position of sharing insights from a government perspective on what grounds have to be weighed to come to a certain decision, to explain what reasons have been explored and have been used to make a certain decision either by a municipal council or by executive council.
So it's almost about sharing knowledge and information as well as sharing processes, I suppose, or sharing power.
Very much, and
it's all of those things. Yeah.
Then it becomes clear that we don't do things to be irritating to villages or to make something do something bad. But that sometimes it's just the way that things are.
Yeah, and I guess it's a two-way exchange, isn't it? It's that they have citizens do need to understand to a degree how the municipality works, and you also need to understand what the needs and the priorities and the challenges of the citizens are. And
exactly,
I think, I suppose with the trust, you can also challenge those things a little bit. Why does the municipality work like this? Can't you do something different in your, there's, you get the trust and you can have that two-way debate a bit more about, could we do something different here?
Exactly, and that independent connector plays a very, very important and good role in that, as well as that we, as a government and as people from the municipal organization, get much more insights in what the needs of villages and the wishes of villages are in our projects that we in the end execute for them.
Yeah. Lisa, Perrine, did you have any perspective on the trust aspect and rebuilding? Have you seen examples of that, or do you have any reflections on that at all?
Yeah, we got quite same learning, like to have more inclusive approaches. Always meet people where they are, try to find what they're interested in, and I think what is important as well is the way of facilitating workshops to ensure real equity of speaking, of expressing for everyone. So this is very challenging to ensure inside a workshop to make each one to feel comfortable to express himself, and we think as well that it's often important to start quite small, with very short and short-term processes and focused on very concrete topics, and like small community work days at the base of buildings. And this is how you can build trust with something short with very visible results.
Yeah. People want to see results, exactly, don't they? If people can see something comes
build
from
on
the
it,
process.
and if you if you experiment something positive, you can maybe try something a bit more ambitious.
Yeah, and I think that's it. The trust comes from having those joint interactions, joint successes, joint failures even. I mean, all of those things build that trust in terms of, it wasn't just you that failed, we got it wrong together, so what can we do? Or it wasn't just me that succeeded, we both, so it's changing those dynamics over time, isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting. And I think the bit about facilitation in workshops, and I guess that's where the Dom thinker comes in a little bit, Alan, as well, in terms of providing that external voice to support people to get involved and who perhaps might not feel comfortable doing so, or and I guess that's within a meeting or within an interaction. But I guess also designing the process. So it
That's
comes
it.
back to the, like you
Mm.
said, meeting people where they are. So thinking about how you design your process, how you design the meeting, as well as how you support the interactions to be inclusive as well. I think all of those things are quite relevant, I think. I'm just looking in the chat. We've got sort of 5 or so minutes left. I'm just having a quick look through the chat just to see if there's anything relevant in there. It's just a comment from Alexa Markle just about the connector role, sort of resembling the role of a social mediator, and that in France, those professionals employed by local organisations is important for facilitating those relationships. And I think that's often the key thing, I suppose, we're hearing here. It's having that support to do that's really key, which I guess is the whole point of both of your 2 programs. Really, it's about how do you support people to understand what's needed and to then to execute those things in a positive way with people in a way that, and people sometimes need help to learn about that or to develop that or just to work through the process. There's just another question from Christina about how people get involved in those projects, and I guess just sort of briefly for both of you, is there a particular, do people come to you? Do you go to them? What's the sort of rough process for people, or how do they apply to get involved in either Territoire d'Engagement or as a DOM village? Aaron, do you want to?
Yeah, I can start. We advertise but we announce to villages that we have the project running, and sometimes we do scout them, sort of. So if we see villages in which it could have a potential success, then we engage with these villages through our forward network to discuss with them if they are interested, and if we could explore.
There is a bit of a proactive role to recruit them in that sense. Okay, yeah.
On the other hand, we had some examples in which village organizations themselves saw that the DOM project was running, and they approached us with questions if they could become a village with the method.
Do you see a difference in success? If you can say that, I don't know, in terms of if people approach you, is it easier to get involved as opposed to you approaching them? Like if they're already thinking, oh, this looks like what we want to do, does that help, or do you find it's equal?
I think equal. But what we do when either they approach us, or if we enter talks with them, if they want to become a DOM village, is that we look very much into what the objectives are that we want to meet, and what the challenges are that they're on the ground.
Yeah.
So, for example, if there just is one renovation project and there isn't much to anything else, then then the chances will be big that we won't enroll into a full DOM process and village, because it's just too small. Then there has to be some amount of people, some amount of challenge, some amount of projects and subjects. So of course we do scale. So I just showed you the PowerPoint slide in which we had 8 or 9 working groups. There are also DOM villages which only have 4 working groups, and some have a very large amount of inhabitants that are involved, and some a bit less. So of course we scale on that, but in the end there has to be some ground, there has to be some amount of work to be done and to be connected. If it's just an individual challenge or project that has to be done, then the regular processes will be very much sufficient, with a specific eye that governments need to have a participatory approach, of course. But then a DOM project isn't the right code, so to say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, thanks. Lisa, Perrine, did you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, quite briefly, there are no standardized code for applications for a program. Generally, the cities are coming to us We are not doing much communication about our program because our resources are not very wide and broad. But also sometimes, exceptionally, our colleagues in the NCT who works in the territory will also put ourselves in contact with some cities. But more generally, they are coming to us with their needs
Yeah.
and
I guess that's also the visibility of the program means that people know
definitely.
it's there and come
Yeah.
to you about it. Yeah. Okay. No, that's interesting. We're kind of running out of time, so I think it's probably a good point to kind of start to wrap things up there. But I mean, I could carry on this conversation for for a long time. There's some really interesting bits in here, and I think we may offline come back to that. I think if people have got questions or want to get in touch with either ANCT or Helen Venn, then you can let us know or let Sophia know, and we can put you in contact if you want to find out more, have further discussions, because I think there's some relevant things that might be useful for others in there. I think there are some just really interesting points there around, the bit around trust really underpins all of this, and that kind of it's people have to trust the process to get involved with it. They have to feel safe. They have to feel comfortable to participate. And where people are excluded is often, I guess, because they don't feel that they trust the situation or don't feel it's for them, don't feel they recognize themselves in that process. So I suppose that aspect's really key. But again, the facilitation and connection role, I think, is quite another key aspect to support people through it. And I guess spreading those skills and that change in process as you go. But yeah, thank you to Arend, Perrine, and Lisa. It's been really great to have your examples and your insights and your reflections on it. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Sophia's just posted something in the chat to say about the final session that's running. But I'll hand back to you, Sophia, to just close off and wrap things up for us and just give us our final couple of messages. But yes, thank you for all of you for being involved in that. So Sophia, back to you.
Yes. Yeah, thanks so much. Very interesting. I love hearing about structures that help local governments do better participatory processes, because we often hear this is something that they can be challenged by. So very nice to hear. I did indeed post a link to register for our final session in the chat, which will take place on June 5th. With the timing to be determined, but we'll be in touch about that. And we hope that you found this session interesting and join us for the next one. So again, big thanks to everyone for your presentations, for sharing, and for your great facilitation, Ian. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.